All right, so last time we had this game, we went ahead, we played it, and we showed some collision boxes around the character. So here they are, the collision boxes, and we noticed a couple things. We noticed that the yellow's a little bit too high. The rectangles are all kind of further away from my character right here, because my character is a lot smaller than the previous character, this one, that used to fit in there. So you'll also notice something else. When I hit a wall, I'm way far off of it. So we're going to try to correct these couple things here. As you can see, I'm kind of spaced out from the wall here. So a couple places and things we need to look at. So first of all, I'm inside the game screen class. I'm looking at the paint method. Last time we did this, we might have to have a correction here, but just to make sure, we've got robot.rect, which means the robot object, which is from the robot class, left, top, width, and then height, and then of course the color that you want to select after that. So make sure those are in order. Of course, we've got rect2, which is also from the robot object. We've got the left, the top, the rect, the width, height, and all these for all of them, right? So when you make sure that you have those correct in the right order, let's take a look at the tile class, because there's something important to note about pictures. Now this goes for any type of tile you have. Looking at check vertical collision, my character is off the ground. Now I notice I've got -63 here whenever I make contact with my Y position. Well, I look at my picture and I see I've got 110 by 110 pixels, right? So mine happens to be a perfect square, I guess. But looking at the old character that used to be there, it was 122 by 126 pixels. So half and half, the height would be 126 would be 63, right? So I noticed that that's the number right there, 63. So I'm going to change that to 55 because that matches my character. And I'll go ahead and I'll run it real quick. And I'll take a look here. And I now notice that my character's feet now are in line with the ground because it's halfway through the picture. So now I've corrected that issue as far as that goes. So one thing down. Now, again, keep in mind that's 55 there, right? So now if I go back to the robot class and just showing you I'm in the update method here, we're going to see the rectangles that actually exist that happen to be being painted or drawn on the screen thanks to the game screen class. You'll notice that the first rectangle, rect, is built off of center X, center Y, -63, so forth and so on. And you notice every corresponding rectangle after that in this code is built off the rectangle. Now, it's a matter of preference, but they're all built off a rectangle, the very first rect, right? So I'm probably going to end up changing that a little bit. You could continue building it like that. But as you see here, I have what exactly each one of those parameters means in there. So center X is the left. The top there is for the top. The third parameter is for the side or the right side of the rectangle. And the fourth parameter is the bottom. So we're going to kind of edit those a little bit as we go, but let's take a look again. So if you look at my rectangles here, like I said before, you'll notice that I've got a lot of space here off to the right, and I even have some head space here, so it's a little bit too high. An object could graze over my head and then perhaps, hit the box but not hit the character. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 55 just to take a look at it, right? And let me go ahead and run it real quick. So that should mean that that second parameter, now we should be moving the box in more, down more. So it should be at the top of my head. So we can now see that rect, the yellow rectangle, is right at head level. So again, that's because the picture is 55, so it works out pretty nicely. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look, and we'll change this next one here to center X plus 15. So now I'm trying to bring that right side of that box in because it was way too far out. So let's go ahead and run this again and just take a visual look to see, okay, so now the box is definitely moved in. And actually, not a bad guess. That's pretty much where I want it to be because I'm going to end up using that gray box there to cinch in. I also noticed there's a little space there. So it's at center Y, the bottom of it, so that's where I want it to be because I want it to be halfway through. So I'm going to end up moving this blue box, or rect2, up a little bit. So again, like I said, previously they've been built off a rect. I don't want that. I'm going to make them kind of independent. This way I think I have more flexibility. So I'm going to make the left position of this box center X -34, just like the top one. And, rect. And then the top of this, I'm going to make it just center Y because that should bring back up to that center point. And then those two boxes should touch and bottom, top and bottom. So let's go ahead and run that real quick just to make sure that I have the boxes touching each other at this point. And sure enough, I see that they're touching. The blue box again is still a little bit too big, so I'm going to fix that in a second. But now the yellow and the blue box, rect and rect 2, are indeed touching. So now I'm going to go for the right side of the box here, and I'm going to get rid of it being based off of rect. I'm going to base it off of rect 2. So now I'm saying, hey, rect 2's left side there, which was center X minus 34. Let's build off of that from 55 pixels and take a look. So might be too big, might be too small, but now I can kind of take a look at it and run it and make my own decision once I visually see this. So you're going to see this is a lot of tweaking back and forth. It's still a little bit too big to me. I want it a little bit closer to the legs. So I'm just coming back here. Again, I'm going to tweak it, try to bring it into the left a little bit so I make that number a little smaller. And then we'll go ahead and run it. And you'll see now, once I play this, that box is in more, so it's a lot closer to my legs. It's going to give me a little bit more of a realistic sort of feel to that. Again, my rectangle here, my left arm is a little bit too far out, and I'll deal with that. That's actually, you'll see this is like the left arm here, rect 3, and you'll see it's also built off of rect. Eventually, I'll change that a little bit. I might leave it. It's again, it's a matter of preference. And then rect 4 here is the arm that is the gray one. That's as I look at it, or as we look at it on the screen, it's the right arm of the character. So I'm going to change that from 55. I'll leave it based off of rect right now, just to show you can kind of do it both ways. Again, I think building it off of its own coordinates allows for a little bit more flexibility. Now you notice the big change here. My rectangle didn't get any smaller and it didn't move left. What it did is the X position moved left. So now I've got a wider rectangle. So I'm glad that I moved it to the left, but it's still leaning way too far to the right, as you can see. So that is the parameter for right. So I've got to go to that third one, and I see it's plus 94 off of the rectangle's left side. That's way too much. So I'm going to take that back 20 pixels, and let's go ahead and run it. And now it should be closer to my barrel. Let's see how good it is, though. And that's a little bit closer. So not too bad overall. I could tweak it a little bit more if I wanted it to be absolutely perfect. But let's go ahead and let's take this over to the side collision here and see where we're at. So it's a little bit closer. It's not perfect, and I still bounce back really far. It doesn't seem very realistic. I'd rather have a stopping mechanism there or action as opposed to that. So I go back to the tile class and look at side collisions here. Now we're going to see a couple. So that's the left rectangle there, and that's based off of 102. I'm not worried about the left rectangle. I want to look more at the right. So I see right 62. Again, that's built off of the old robot or character. So I want to make this build based off of mine, which is half is 55. This is actually left foot 2. I'm going to change it now. It doesn't have any results on what I'm doing right now, but I'll just change it right now because in the future I'll remember if I get my left, or I don't have to remember if I get my left moving here. So I'm going to go ahead and see what behaviors change once I've done this. So based off of this, I should bounce a little bit less. So I'm a little bit closer. It's still not perfect. So, this is going to be a matter of just kind of tweaking it to get the visual, based off of it. So you can see again, this is 102. It's based off of the left foot. So I don't need to change that. That was built off the left foot as well. And this is right, and this is right as well, or right rectangle, or right rectangles, I should have said. And those weren't necessarily both left feet, but left boxes. So this right one here, 55, I'm actually going to change it a little bit. I'm going to go to 35, and I'll change this right side collision to 35 as well, because it seemed like it was about 20 pixels off. So we'll go ahead. Again, we're just adjusting these and getting some visuals. So let's kind of bring it back over here to the side and take a look what happens. So that looks pretty good to me. That's pretty darn close. I mean, the barrel of my character is touching. Yeah, so it looks like I have a good response to that. So again, really what you're going to need to do is mess with these boxes a little bit, but now that you have an understanding of how to control them, the size-wise, and get them to fit your character a little bit more, that should help you out quite a bit. And also, now that you understand how it reacts to the obstacles based off of the tile class, you should be able to get a really much more realistic for whatever character size you put in this game. And you know, it'll help you out on your way to programming.